Welcome. Allow your mind to drift gently back through the swirling mists of time. The streets of London lay before you, but not the bustling electric metropolis we know today. Instead, it is the London of the 18th century, a city of smoke-filled alleys, narrow cobbled lanes, and the steady clatter of wooden wheels on stone. The air is thick, not with excitement, but with something heavier, the weight of desperation, of lives entangled in debt, of quiet suffering hidden behind tall, cold walls. Tonight, we will walk together through one of the most grim and often forgotten corners of this great city's history, the world of London's debtors' prisons, a world not built for punishment alone, but for slow decay, a world where families might live beside felons, where survival itself was a daily negotiation, and where the echo of a guard's footsteps might be the only sound breaking the heavy silence of despair. Now, take a breath, settle your mind, and let us gently enter the daily rhythm of life inside these shadowed walls. Segment 1. Why was it bad? Immersion in daily life. Imagine yourself walking slowly down a damp, narrow corridor. The walls are cold stone, their surfaces slick with moisture drawn from deep within the earth. The faint flicker of an oil lamp casts long, wavering shadows that dance against the grime-encrusted walls. The air is dense, heavy with the mingled odors of unwashed bodies, mildew, and the lingering tang of stale, thin gruel. You have entered the Marshalsea Prison, one of many such places scattered throughout 18th century London, a city overflowing with the condemned souls of debtors. Unlike the more familiar image of iron bars and solitary cells, these prisons function more as crowded living cities within walls. You are not alone here. Men, women, and even children shuffle through the cramped spaces, their worn garments hanging loosely from thin frames. Entire families have been cast into confinement, trapped by the weight of financial obligations they could not meet. In the poorest sections, dozens might share a single chamber. There are no proper beds, only straw pallets scattered across the damp stone. The air grows warmer and more fetid with each additional body. Lice and vermin make their homes easily here. The gnawing squeaks of rats echo softly in the corners. Food is scarce. If you have no money, no relatives bringing offerings, you eat what is offered: watery broth, coarse bread, sometimes little more than scraps. Starvation does not always arrive swiftly here. Instead, it drips into the body like a slow and steady poison, weakening limbs and dulling minds. The dangers extend beyond mere hunger. Violence simmers just beneath the surface. Disputes over debts, over minor slights, or over the precious few scraps of food may erupt into sudden fights. The guards watch, sometimes intervene, sometimes turn away. Corruption flows through these walls as freely as disease. Bribes are exchanged for better accommodations, for extra rations, or simply for survival itself. And there is disease, always disease. The air carries the faint coughs of consumption. Fevers sweep through the prison like whispers of death. Without medical care, minor wounds fester. Infections spread silently, indifferent to age or status. At times, you might glimpse the faint light of hope, a visitor at the gate, a letter from the outside. But these moments are fleeting. For many here, freedom remains a distant, nearly unimaginable dream. And yet, amid this slow, grinding despair, life continues. A strange rhythm develops, the same dull routine, the same faces, the same prayers whispered each night under a cold, unfeeling sky. Now, let us move forward, simways away from the daily struggle and into the life of a man who dared to confront these shadowed places. Biographical, John Howard's prison reform campaign. Our journey now leads us away from the choking air of the prison corridors into the life of a man whose footsteps carried him deep into these very halls of misery, not as a prisoner, but as a witness, an investigator, and ultimately a reformer. John Howard, a name that echoes softly through the history of English justice. Born in 1726, Howard was not a man of government or inherited nobility. He was a landowner, a man of quiet faith, drawn by personal tragedy and moral conviction into a world most sought to ignore. In his younger years, Howard endured illness, personal loss, and shipwreck. These trials left their mark, instilling within him a profound sense of purpose, a duty to act where others remained silent. By 1773, appointed as High Sheriff of Bedfordshire, he found himself responsible for overseeing local prisons. What he discovered within their walls shocked him. He saw the same scenes you have just walked through. Prisoners left to rot long after serving their sentences, simply because they could not pay jailers' fees, bribes demanded for release. He saw starvation, filth, and unchecked cruelty. Children sharing cells with hardened criminals, the sick lying unattended in pestilential air. But unlike many before him, Howard did not turn away. He embarked on a tireless mission. He visited hundreds of prisons, not only across England, but throughout Europe. In Paris, in Geneva, in Amsterdam, he witnessed dungeons beneath grand city streets, hidden chambers where misery was kept out of sight, but never out of existence. Everywhere he carried his notebook, documenting conditions in careful, detached detail. His reports were clinical, but beneath the cool language lay outrage and sorrow. In 1777, he published The State of the Prisons in England and Wales. This book was unlike anything before it, filled not with political rhetoric, but hard evidence. He exposed the systematic neglect of prisoners, called for ventilation, for basic hygiene, for the separation of the sick, for access to clean water and proper nutrition. Howard's work was not always welcomed. Some officials resented his exposure of their corruption. Many dismissed prisoners as deserving of their fate, but others, slowly, began to listen. His legacy sparked the early movements toward prison reform. Hospitals were introduced into some prisons. Sanitation improved. The idea that prisoners might be treated humanely, even while punished, began to take root. John Howard did not live to see the full fruit of his work. In 1790, while visiting a Russian prison hospital, he contracted typhus and died. Yet his life left a quiet revolution in its wake, one that would ripple through centuries. And so, as his shadow fades into history, we turn now to another shadow, one buried deep beneath London's streets, where archaeology uncovers the silent remains of this long-forgotten suffering. Mystery, archaeology, Marshalsea excavations and discoveries. As centuries passed, the walls of London's notorious debtors' prisons crumbled. Their names faded from common memory, their gates sealed, and their stones repurposed or buried beneath the ever-expanding city. But time, though powerful, does not erase everything. Beneath modern London, archaeologists have uncovered fragments of these dark institutions, most notably the remains of the infamous Marshalsea Prison. The Marshalsea stood for over 400 years. Located near what is now Borough High Street, it once loomed as a symbol of financial ruin, infamous even in its own time. Charles Dickens, whose own father was imprisoned there, wove its misery into his novels, preserving its cruel legacy for generations. In recent decades, careful excavations have revealed chilling remnants, stone foundations, the very blocks that supported the thick perimeter walls. Their cool surfaces still bear the scars of iron gates once slammed shut, rusting iron rings embedded into brickwork, where prisoners were chained. These small, unassuming fixtures remind us that restraint was not merely symbolic, but brutally physical. Fragments of pottery and personal items, cups, broken plates, buttons, and worn shoe leather. Each fragment once held in human hands, small markers of ordinary lives trapped within extraordinary suffering. Human remains have also been discovered nearby. Though most burials were conducted elsewhere, some paupers' graves lie not far from where prisoners perished. These silent artifacts whisper to us across time, offering glimpses into the lives lost to the slow grind of debt and despair. What they cannot tell us, and what remains forever unknowable, are the countless stories of personal grief, shattered families, and the quiet resignation that filled these halls. Even today, when Londoners walk along the polished pavements of Southwark, few realise they tread atop centuries of human sorrow. The Marshalsea is gone, but not entirely forgotten. Its partial ruins have been preserved as a small memorial, a quiet corner, surrounded by modern buildings, where old brickwork peaks above the earth, offering mute testimony to lives once trapped within. As we leave behind these excavated ghosts, we turn now to a very different side of 18th century London, one of glittering candlelight, wealth, and curious social power. Social life elite, London's coffee houses and salons. While prisoners in Marshalsea huddled on damp straw and fought hunger, a very different London thrived just a few streets away. Step now into one of the bustling coffee houses of 18th century London, places of polished wooden tables, roaring conversation, and the heady aroma of roasted beans. Here, the city's merchants, scholars, artists, and political schemers gathered beneath flickering candlelight. For the price of a penny, the cost of one cup, men could sit for hours exchanging ideas, news, and rumours that shaped the course of British society. Unlike today's quiet cafes, these establishments pulsed with energy. Patrons debated the latest political pamphlets, argued over stock prices, and speculated on foreign wars. The London Stock Exchange itself was born from the boisterous atmosphere of Jonathan's Coffee House. Elsewhere, at Lloyd's Coffee House, shipowners, captains, and insurers struck deals that fueled Britain's global trade empire and laid the foundation for the insurance industry we still know today. But not all was commerce. Some coffee houses leaned toward the literary, attracting writers, poets, and pamphleteers eager to trade gossip and wit. In the dim corners, figures like Samuel Johnson and James Boswell might be found, their voices rising above the din as they discussed philosophy, literature, and the finer points of language. Beyond the coffee houses, salons and drawing rooms offered an even more refined setting for London's elite. Here, the upper classes gathered beneath ornate chandeliers, sipping fine sherry while listening to chamber music or discussing the latest discoveries from the Royal Society. Scientific marvels were unveiled to gasps of wonder. Electric experiments, anatomical lectures, strange devices hinting at a world both frightening and full of promise. This was an age where progress and cruelty lived side by side, where Enlightenment thinkers challenged old traditions, even as the prisons of Marshalsea remained crowded with the poor and powerless. The glittering world of London's elite existed not in opposition to its darker corners, but beside them. They were two faces of the same city, divided by walls, by fortune, and by fate. And so we end our quiet journey through 18th century London, from the cold despair of debtors' prisons to the tireless work of reformers, through silent ruins unearthed beneath modern streets, and finally into the glittering halls of wealth and power, a city of contrasts, a world of shadows and candlelight. Now, as you drift further into sleep, may the echoes of this distant past settle gently in your dreams, until we meet again for another quiet walk through history.